You think monsters only exist in the movies? You're wrong. 70 million years ago, a 17-meter-long meat grinder swam in the ocean. When it was hungry, it would even eat its own children. Inside the stomach of a Mosasaur fossil, scientists discovered the bones of another small Mosasaur. But that isn't even the scariest part. What truly makes your skin crawl are its teeth. 2 rows, over 100 of them, every single one hooked back toward the throat. What does this mean? It means that once you are bitten, if you struggle even a little, a chunk of flesh will be torn right off. The harder you struggle, the more gruesome your death. And its jaw can even dislocate, opening to an angle of over 180 degrees. It can swallow an adult human in one bite. In 2010, scientists conducted an experiment using computers to simulate its bite force. When the results came out, everyone fell silent. 16 tons? What does that look like? It's equivalent to a fully loaded truck crushing down on you. Bones will be ground into powder in 3 seconds. But the strangest thing is the way it went extinct. It wasn't starvation. It wasn't being killed. But rather suddenly, all mosasaurs across the globe collectively vanished in the same year. It was as if someone had pressed the delete key. To this day, scientists still haven't figured out exactly what happened in the ocean that year. But what's even more hair-raising is a detail scientists discovered in 2018. In Kansas, USA, they unearthed a Mosasaur fossil. The spine of this fossil was covered in dense bite marks. The shape and size of these bite marks perfectly matched the teeth of a Mosasaur. What does this tell us? It means this Mosasaur was bitten to death by another of its own kind. Even more terrifying, those bite marks showed signs of healing. In other words, this fight lasted a long time. After being attacked by its own kind, it was heavily injured, but it didn't die immediately. Instead, it lived in agony for several months before finally passing away. Why would mosasaurs resort to cannibalism? The answer is hidden within their bones. In 2015, scientists used CT scanning technology to reconstruct the brain structure of a mosasaur. They found that the olfactory region of the brain was exceptionally developed, occupying 40% of its total brain volume. What does this mean? It means a mosasaur could smell blood from several kilometers away. And once they caught the scent, they would fall into a frenzied feeding state. Whether it was prey or their own kind, it was all food. Scientists call this state predatory rage. Like a switch being flipped, the mosasaur would lose all reason, leaving only one thought: eat. Eat non-stop until the stomach could no longer hold anything else. And even stranger, the mosasaur has another trick. Their eyes can rotate in 2 different directions independently, just like a chameleon. What does this mean? It means while hunting, a mosasaur can simultaneously monitor its surroundings in a full 360 degrees. You think you're safe approaching from behind? Wrong. It saw you a long time ago. It's just waiting for you to get a little closer. In 2019, scientists in Morocco discovered a well-preserved fossil of mosasaur skin. This was the first time humans saw what they truly look like. Its skin wasn't smooth, but was covered in diamond-shaped scales. Each scale had intricate, fine textures. These textures could reduce water resistance, allowing the mosasaur to swim at breathtaking speeds. When the test results came out, everyone gasped in shock. A mosasaur's swimming speed could reach 48 kilometers per hour. And that wasn't even the limit. When it went into a full sprint, it could exceed 60 kilometers per hour. What does that look like? It means even if you were an Olympic champion, your speed in the water would only be about 8 kilometers per hour. Against a mosasaur, you wouldn't even have a chance to run. But speed was only one part of the mosasaur's terror. What truly drove people to despair was its endurance. In 2021, By analyzing muscle fossils of the Mosasaur, scientists discovered that their muscle fiber density 3 times that of modern marine life. What does this mean? It means mosasaurs could swim continuously at high speeds for hours, without tiring, without stopping, just like an unstoppable killing machine. And Mosasaurus has another insane ability. They can dive to depths of 300 meters underwater. A deep-sea Mosasaurus fossil discovered in 2017 proves this point. Its bone density is extremely high. It can withstand immense water pressure. What does this explain? It means even if you hide in the deep sea, Mosasaurus can still hunt you down. Even more terrifying, Mosasaurus could also use tactics. In 2020, while analyzing Mosasaurus hunting tracks, scientists found that when a Mosasaurus attacks prey, it doesn't bite the lethal parts directly. Instead, it first bites the prey's tail or fins, then shakes it violently. With this shake, the prey's bones are snapped by the immense inertia, losing all mobility. Only then will the Mosasaurus slowly enjoy its meal. This hunting method is cruel and efficient. Scientists also discovered that Mosasaurus teeth are constantly replaced. They can be replaced over 20 times in a lifetime. And every new tooth is sharper and more lethal than the old one. By 70 million years ago, Mosasaurus had already evolved over a dozen different body types. The smallest was only 3 meters, while the largest exceeded 17 meters. They occupied every corner of the ocean, from shallow waters to the deep sea, from the tropics to the poles. Wherever there was water, there was Mosasaurus. But just at this time, fate played a cruel joke on the Mosasaurus. 66 million years ago, an asteroid 10 kilometers in diameter crashed into the Earth. The energy released at the moment of impact was equivalent to 100 trillion tons of TNT. The entire planet was on fire. The oceans boiled. Giant waves reached 300 meters high, scouring every inch of the coastline. But that wasn't the most lethal part. The dust kicked up by the impact blotted out the sun. The sun disappeared. The entire Earth plunged into darkness. Temperatures plummeted and seawater began to freeze. And as Mosasauruses were reptiles, they needed warm seawater to survive. More importantly, Mosasaurus needed to surface regularly to breathe. But the sea surface after the impact was pure hell. Acid rain fell incessantly. The pH level of the seawater changed drastically. Every time they surfaced was an ordeal. Scientists speculate that in the final months before extinction, Mosasauruses experienced unprecedented suffering. Hungry, wandering in the freezing seawater, unable to find food, unable to find warmth. With every breath, their lungs were corroded by acid rain. But they had no choice. If they didn't breathe, they would suffocate. If they did, they would slowly be choked to death. In 2023, scientists in North Dakota, USA, discovered a special Mosasaurus fossil. The posture of this fossil was very strange. It was curled up in a ball, as if protecting itself. The sediments around the fossil showed that this Mosasaurus died in a shallow sea area. Scientists speculate that in its final moments of life, this Mosasaurus tried to swim to the warmer, shallow waters, hoping to live for just one more day. But ultimately, it still failed. This is the story of Mosasaurus, a story about absolute power and absolute destruction. Did you hear that? You are already dead. That sound just now was a death alarm from 70 million years ago. If you are now feeling dizzy, nauseous, or want to vomit, with a racing heartbeat, congratulations. Your body is smarter than your brain. You thought dinosaurs could only roar? Big mistake. There was one kind of dinosaur with a natural trumpet growing on its head. It can emit low-frequency infrasound. The propagation distance exceeds 10 kilometers. It is called the Parasaurolophus. That sound just now was made by it. but your ears can't hear it at all, because the frequency is as low as 30 hertz. That is 10 hertz lower than the limit of human hearing. You can't hear it, but your internal organs can feel it. Your heart is resonating. Your lungs are vibrating. On top of its head, it sports a 1.8-meter long bony crest. You might think it's just an ornament. Scientists thought so too at first. Until 2008, someone used a CT scan on this tube. They discovered that the internal structure is exactly like the resonance chamber of a concert hall. Even more terrifying, when they used a computer to reconstruct the sound, all the laboratory instruments triggered alarms. This isn't just a sound anymore. It's a weapon. This frequency can penetrate forests and mountains. Creatures within 10 kilometers can sense it. If you traveled back to the Cretaceous period and encountered a group of Parasaurolophus, your legs would inexplicably go weak. Palpitations and chest tightness. Difficulty breathing, yet you wouldn't know where the danger was. Because your ears simply cannot capture their roars. But your body would already be trembling. Nature's most terrifying weapons are never the ones you can see, but the things you can't perceive at all. But here's where it gets even weirder. In 1920, by the Red Deer River in Canada, a group of paleontologists unearthed the first Parasaurolophus fossil. The moment they finished assembling the skull, everyone was stunned. This bony crest begins above the eyes and extends backward at a 45-degree angle. It is a full one, 8 meters long, like a giant French horn perched on its head. Some said it was a breathing tube, like a submarine snorkel. Some said it was a cooling system to lower the brain's temperature. Some even said it was a salt gland, specifically for excreting excess salt. But these theories were quickly overturned. Because if you carefully observe the internal structure of this bony crest, you'll discover a chilling fact. The tube starts from the nostrils, extends all the way to the top of the crest, then folds back on itself, and leads directly into the skull. The entire passage is 3 meters long, coiled into a complex U-shaped structure. And what's most frightening is that different species of Parasaurolophus have entirely different levels of tube complexity. P. walkeri has the simplest passages, just a basic U-bend. But the passages of P. tubicin are outrageously complex. Some tubes are dead ends, some are cross-branched, and some are crisscross, forming a maze-like acoustic network. Scientists used computers to simulate airflow through these tubes, and the results made everyone gasp. When air passes through these tubes at high speed, it produces a low-frequency resonance similar to a trombone. But that's not the key point. The key is that different tubes can produce different frequencies. According to a 1981 study by scientist Weishampel, P. walkeri could create sounds from 55 to 720 hertz. That might not sound like a big deal, but you should know these frequency ranges happen to cover the sensitive bands of most mammals. In other words, the sounds of Parasaurolophus were designed to affect other animals' nervous systems. But it gets even crazier. In 1995, in New Mexico, scientists discovered an exceptionally well-preserved P. tubicin skull. This time, they used computed tomography for a 3D reconstruction of the crest. They found that while the main tube of the crest could emit a low frequency of 30 hertz, the small branching tubes could control the peaks and valleys of the sound. In other words, Parasaurolophus could not only vocalize, but also adjust timbre and intensity. They could create complex, pipe organ-like composite tones, or emit a single low-frequency rumble. What does this mean? It means Parasaurolophus had a vocal communication system far more complex than we imagined. Imagine this scene. North America, 75 million years ago. In a dense coniferous forest, a herd of Parasaurolophus is foraging. Suddenly, the leader raises its head, its bony crest vibrating slightly, and an audible low-frequency wave spreads out in all directions at 340 meters per second. 10 kilometers away, the Parasaurolophus that were drinking immediately stopped their movements. Their bony crest began to resonate. They had received an alarm signal. In less than 30 seconds, all the Parasaurolophus in the area had received the message. They began to retreat toward a safe zone. But the other animals in the forest, including those fierce carnivorous dinosaurs, had absolutely no idea what was happening because they couldn't hear this frequency. This is the most terrifying thing about the Parasaurolophus. They possessed a communication system that other species could not eavesdrop on. This was more advanced than modern military encrypted communications because there wasn't even a possibility of interception. Your auditory system, on a physical level, simply could not capture this signal. But wait, there's more. Scientists discovered that the shape and size of the Parasaurolophus's crest changed with age and gender. Juvenile Parasaurolophus had very small crests, almost circular in shape. But as they grew up, the crest grew rapidly, gradually becoming that iconic long tube. What does this mean? It means Parasaurolophus of different age groups could emit sounds at different frequencies. The low-frequency rumbling of adults was for warning and deterrence, while the high-frequency chirping of juveniles was for calling their parents. The entire herd was like an acoustic symphony orchestra, where every member had its own vocal range, and each range had a specific meaning. Even more astonishingly, the crests of female and male Parasaurolophus were also different. The male's crest was longer and more complex, capable of producing deeper sounds. This was very likely used for courtship. Imagine, during the breeding season, the male standing in an open clearing, taking turns to emit low-frequency rumbles, just like modern blue whales singing at the bottom of the ocean. But this system had a fatal flaw. The Parasaurolophus's crest was too fragile. Fossil records show that many Parasaurolophus's crests, once the crest was damaged, they lost their ability to communicate. They became deaf and mute within the herd. And in the world of the Cretaceous, losing the ability to communicate meant losing the chance to survive. This explains why Parasaurolophus fossils are so rare. In Alberta, Canada, scientists have found only one complete skull and a few scattered bones. In New Mexico and Utah, the situation is slightly better, but there are still only 3 potential specimens. Compared to other hadrosaurids, the number of Parasaurolophus is pitifully small. This is likely because their survival strategy relied too heavily on that fragile bony crest. Once the crest was damaged, they would be abandoned by the herd, eventually dying in isolation, while those with intact crests could thrive under the protection of sound. Now we finally understand. The Parasaurolophus's crest was not an ornament, not a snorkel, and not a cooling system. It was a biological sonar system, a radio station from 70 million years ago, the most advanced communication device in the dinosaur world. Its existence tells us a cruel fact. In nature, the most fearsome weapons are often the things you cannot perceive at all. By the time you sense danger, it is often too late. So the next time you hear a sound that makes you inexplicably anxious, don't doubt your intuition. Your body understands fear better than your brain does. 70 million years have passed. The Parasaurolophus are long extinct, but the infrasonic communication system they left behind still fascinates scientists today. Because in the modern world, only a very few animals have mastered this technology. Elephants, blue whales, and certain large cats. Yet humans, the species that claims to be the masters of Earth, remain completely ignorant of this realm. We have built skyscrapers, invented the internet, and even landed on the moon. But in the world of infrasound, we are still deaf. This is the ultimate irony left to us by the Parasaurolophus. In the Cretaceous, they used a single bony tube to achieve real-time communication over 10 kilometers. while we require satellites and base stations. Perhaps we have never truly conquered this planet. We are merely temporary occupants of a single frequency,